Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to Benicia Unified School District's board meeting. It's 4/22 of 21, and it is now 7:06 p.m. So welcome to all of you. I call this meeting to order, bringing us back from closed session, and I will call this meeting to order. Roll call. Do we not need to do just at the very beginning? Okay, thank you. So then we are going to report on closed session items, and we have nothing to report from them this evening. And then item 5.2, there's an announcement. Charles, Dr. Young.
I think that's just the reminder.
It's just, right. Oh, the meeting is recorded for live streaming and archiving on the district YouTube channel at YouTube.com/C/Benicia Unified School District for your convenience. Moving on to item number 6. Let's see, maybe we can have our parent, Ms. Manukian. Would you lead us in the pledge this evening? Can she hear me? There, would you lead us in the pledge?
Certainly.
Thank you.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag
To the flag.
the United
States of America.
And to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation, under God, united,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much for doing that. Okay, we're going to move on to approval of the agenda, which is item number 7. Is there a motion on the floor? Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the agenda as written?
I'll move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Yes.
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 Okay. So our agenda has been approved. Moving on to item number 8, which is the highlight. It's the Week of the Young Child Family Celebration. And we have with us tonight June Regis, who's the Director of Child Development. Hi, June. Hi, Mrs. Regis. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, June, can you hear me,
Yes.
June? So
Yes,
just before Mr. Regis starts, just for the general public, this is the agenda item that we try to adhere to every board meeting where we select something in the school district that we like to highlight. There's a lot of wonderful, positive things taking place throughout the district, and this is certainly one of them. And that's what this is about, in case it's the first time certain, maybe some parents have been tuning in. And also, I would just like to point out that Miss Regis, I have to say this, June, that we're so proud of, I'm going to say it real quick. We're so proud of June because she's in the final stages of finishing her doctorate at UC Davis, and she's in the final phases of putting her dissertation together. That's such a tremendous achievement, and we're just so proud of you, June. So we get the double highlight. That, good job. And now this. So I just had to say that. So on you go. Thank you, June.
Thank you so much.
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you for your support.
Always.
So the Week of the Young Child is a celebration that's done through NAEYC, which is the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And this is an international celebration. So we in Benicia have been celebrating this for the last 10 years. And usually at the end of the week, we have a big carnival-like celebration, inviting all our parents, preschool, and after school families to come and have a good time with us. This year, unfortunately, because of COVID and our restrictions that come along with COVID, we have had to do it as a drive-through celebration with a couple of our partners. So last Saturday, we held a family drive-through at the district office from 10 to 12. And here's some of the pictures from it. Some of the highlights we had there's Dr. Beatson. She spent all the time with us. And there's Alfredo Romero. He is our director of maintenance, and they were there with us. We just put a little blurb. A bunch of families called us and told us how happy they were with it. And so that's what that little blurb is from one of the families. She did not realize it was going to be such a big do. It's her first year with us, so she was very thankful for it. Some of our partners were Food Solano. So Food Solano gave each family, we gave out 60 boxes of food on Saturday. Each family got a box, not just with vegetables, but there was a gallon of milk, there were hot dogs, there was chicken, there was yogurt. So they got like a full box that they can really, do some good meals with. So I want to thank Heather and everybody at Food for Solano. And we had each of our preschools, they put out a table. We have 4 sites, so each site put out a table, and they did curriculum packets that families can do at home, from cooking to math to science, STEM. They did everything that a family can work together, because usually they would be on site doing this, but we gave them a packet, and the only thing they would have to add to it is if they needed to add water. But we put everything in there for that family to enjoy a nice little project with each other. And then First 5 Solano gave us full backpacks with a lot of supplies. Everything that you can think of that you want to put into a child's backpack, First 5 Solano gave us that. And we were able to give every family a backpack. So they got a backpack, they got curriculum, and then Benicia Reads gave every family a book. So each family got a book, and then from our CDU program, we gave them a water bottle and a t-shirt as part of our marketing campaign. So families were really surprised with all the little goodies that they got. So I just want to thank the board and Dr. Young and Dr. Beatson, Mr. Ray Hill for supporting us, and Alfredo Romero for coming out and spending. Although I must say his wife is one of our teachers, so he had to be there. But coming out and supported us. So I just want to thank you guys for allowing us to do this. And our families were really happy with what they received. So that's my highlight today.
Oh my gosh.
That was a great highlight.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody that had anything to do with putting that together. It looks like it was a fun event.
Yeah, it was. We had a good time putting it together and being there with the families, because you don't get to see people like you used to before. Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yes, we're getting there.
Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Regis, for sharing. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, and have a good night.
Thank you. You as well.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, we're moving on to item 9, which is reports. The first up are our student reports. Did any of our students show up? I don't think so. So at this time, we'll go ahead and skip that. If they show up, we'll bring them back. Next is 9.2. It's the superintendent's report. Dr. Young, you are up, sir.
Very good. Thank you, President Zeta. Welcome, everybody, and everybody's tuning in at home. We have a good agenda for you this evening. One of the items that we have on there repeatedly is, how are things going with our return to in-person instruction? So we're delighted that we're back, and so we'll look forward to hearing about that. And with that being said, I know there's a lot of questions and thoughts about what school is going to look like in the fall. And the board and I have had an opportunity to talk about this, and I want to tell the community that barring any dramatic turn in the wrong direction with things related to COVID-19 and the pandemic, the intention of the Benicia Unified School District is to go back to full-time in-person instruction in the fall. That is our intention. That is what we're planning to do. We're excited about that. There's a lot of really good indicators around that are in our favor. So I just want the parents to know that. And for the folks that don't watch board meetings, I'll have a brief update on that to the community that I'll send out a little letter tomorrow. And then, again, barring any turn in that, events that we can't control, because you never know, but that doesn't happen again. The intention is to bring everybody back full time. So I just want to lead by saying that. So that's really it from your superintendent at this moment, President Zeta. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Young. I think we're all excited for fall. I'm getting really excited, get those kids back. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and move on to the board reports. Any of my colleagues have anything they would like to share? Dr. Moss, Mr. Maselli, Ms. Scrubs. Who am I missing? I know I missed. Oh, Ms. Ferrucci. Nothing. I don't have anything either. So we're going to go ahead and skip over that. We're going to move on to item number 10, which is comments from the public. And let me see here. In an effort for our community's voices to be heard, Benicia Unified School District has transitioned to accepting public comment voice that will now be available. Members of the public wishing to address specific items on the board meeting agenda are requested to call 707-748-278. One comment per person per item to 3 minutes on the day of the meeting between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Please identify yourself by stating your first and last name. If your comment is for closed session, please be sure to state that so it can be addressed to closed session. The board clerk will play the recording of open session public comments to the specific items then being discussed by the board. Board Bylaw 9323 during the public comment item. The governing board allows speakers to speak at regular meetings and on agendized and non-agendized matters under public comment. Comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker, at which time the voicemail will be cut off. By law, no action may be taken on any item raised during public comment periods, and matters may be referred to staff for placement on a future agenda of the governing board. Please be reminded to keep our comments respectful and that students may be watching our meeting. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start playing the information that we've gotten on the recording. I don't know, how many do we have this evening?
I think it was around 15.
15?
I think
okay.
Approximately.
So I want to thank everybody for reaching out with your comments. We appreciate it, and here we go.
Hello, this is a public comment made by Amanda Sanderson, a parent of the Venetian Unified School District. On behalf of my son, I was hoping to speak and make a comment on, I believe, item 2 or 10 in regards to the school and our students. My concern that I wanted to address and bring up is that right now, when they released the return to school plan on March 4th, it had mentioned that as of today, with us being on April 22nd, we are currently in Model 2, which is a hybrid learning. There has been no communication of when we will be moving into Model 3 and what needs to occur in regards to the state of our counties and where we are with COVID and just the measures of when it will be progressing. A second public comment in the same items that I would like to be addressed is the usage of laptops during class time while we are both in hybrid, and then hopefully for the future when we move to Model 3 as well. I would really greatly like these to be addressed because it has not been communicated, reaching out to the principal, teachers, and also by you guys as well. So that's why I'm making this public comment, and I will be following up with an email. Thank you so much, and I hope that this will be a part of the call later on.
My name is Gia Quinn. My son is a student at Matthew Turner Elementary. I have comments regarding 2 agenda items. Item 12.2, Equity and Opportunity Update. I would like to see the district adopt a more inclusive equity goal, taking into consideration the needs of students with disabilities, the achievement gap across income levels, along with addressing issues of race affecting BUSD students. I fought very hard against many to get a special education position on the Matthew Turner PTA board. I have seen quite a lot of district communication regarding racial equity, and while I applaud those efforts, the lack of equity for special education students is a gaping hole. The main attention I have witnessed in regard to special education students is a drastic cut in support, as well as a major cut to time spent in the general ed classroom. These cuts are not specific to my child only, and they are achieving the exact opposite of equity. Regarding 12.4, Return to in-person instruction. Your agenda notes that the purpose of this report is to highlight the successes at each level. I saw the slideshow, and it has quotes from kids being happy, and I would like to add a quote that my 11-year-old son just said this afternoon. He said, "Oh no, I don't want to do more speech on Zoom. I like school in person better, and I don't want to do virtual anymore. Therefore, I will likely not force him to participate in Zooms anymore. I find it extremely sad that our kids are happy to accept the minimal amount of in-person learning that the district is willing to offer. Our children have been left behind for so long that they are eagerly accepting these crumbs. Regarding next school year, please begin planning now so that our children receive a full year of full-time in-person learning. If you are not 100% planning to have our kids at school full-time in person in the fall, then you have an obligation to tell the parents that now. There are many of us that need time to start looking elsewhere for a full-time education. There has been little to no transparency as far as what the science the district is using to refuse full-time in-person learning for our children. This lack of transparency and communication has caused a great divide in your community. You have the opportunity here to correct this misstep. If you choose to be open and clear about next year's plans, it will go a long way toward repairing the relationships and trust between the district and parents. If you refuse to be open and continue to gloss over our questions and concerns, then I believe further damage will be done. I am no longer asking for you to explain the reasons behind your decision to prevent our kids from being on campus full-time, because I don't believe there to be any. Instead, I'm asking for you to please fully open our schools now. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andrew Barrett, leaving a comment on item number 12.4. My children attend Joe Henderson School, and I teach at Robert Temple. I just wanted to commend all of the staff, the front office staff, teachers, and custodians, anybody who's working at the school site, and CDU staff. The transition to hybrid has been hard work, and my children are really enjoying it. My oldest daughter, who's a high schooler, is in West Contra Costa, which is where I live, and her experience in West Contra Costa versus what my boys are having in Benicia. Benicia is so far ahead. West Contra Costa actually hasn't even reopened for the year. I also know there's similar experiences with colleagues of mine who are over in Emeryville, and some charter school networks haven't reopened. And so I just wanted to give kudos where kudos is to Benicia Unified for a thoughtful and safe reopening. And I know I've been a warm demander and have been critical towards some things our district definitely still needs to work on. Particularly, I know I've been critical around equity, but in this instance, I wanted to call and praise and in particular finding just the extreme hard work that I see all Benicia Unified staff doing to try and make school great for virtual and in-person scholars. Thank you.
Joy Lerner, 524A Cooper Drive, Benicia. I'm relating it to item 12.2, and I am very interested in having more diversity in our school staff and our teachers. There's a lack of diversity now, and it's a huge disservice for all the students. The staff should reflect our community. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kashana Patton, and I'm a Benicia resident. In regards to discussion item 12.2, equity and opportunity update and discussion, I strongly advocate for our children to have access to a curriculum that is historically accurate, reflective, and representative of the contributions of all ethnic cultures of the United States. I am hopeful that the current curriculum audit our district is undertaking produces a classroom experience where our students are learning truth through a diverse range of lenses. As a parent, I request that an equity curriculum audit task force be created composed of diverse educators, diverse parents, and diverse community members to ensure that our curriculum is culturally accurate and reflective of the truth through their life lenses and life experiences. The racial gap between educators and students in BUSD is frightening. Black and brown children are faced with a damaging reminder of how much they are underrepresented on campuses in the city. The lack of diversity in our BUSD educators is doing a huge disservice for all of our students, as they are only receiving a limited perspective and representation of all the beautiful cultures in our country. For anti-racist professional development, I ask that our children be provided with access to a safe and equitable learning environment in which teachers and staff are provided with a robust anti-racist training, which include restorative justice practices, racial equity trainings, and trauma-based interventions and practices. As we all know, as a recent event, should be put into effect as soon as possible. I also would like to speak with on discussion 12.4, returning to in-person instruction update. It is important for us as a school community to acknowledge that the Black and brown families have been disproportionately impacted by COVID. Many of these families face barriers that made them feel unsupported by our school communities even before this pandemic. The past year has shined an even brighter light on how inequalities have led to many of our students being underserved. I want to urge our district to engage in conversations about how we can support these families to feel safe in sending their children back to school. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Arendt. I'm calling in regards to item 12.2. I am a Benicia resident. I'm a parent of 2 children who attend Joe Henderson, and I wanted to bring to your attention concerns that I have that the district has not done enough to address racial inequity in our schools. I'm concerned about this not only because of the recent actions at Rayleigh, but because of many other stories I've heard from friends of color who live in Benicia. First, I ask that our children be provided with access to an equitable learning environment in which teachers and staff are provided with robust anti-racist training. These trainings would include restorative justice practices, racial equity awareness training, trauma-based interventions, unconscious bias training, and practices that would overall be a benefit to Benicia Unified. An example of this is an upcoming SURGE training, it stands for Standing Up for Racial Justice. It's actually organized by the Benicia Library and Benicia Black Lives Matter. I recently took this intense 6-session course and learned more than I ever did in any college course. The course is geared towards white people to learn about whiteness, white privilege, history of white supremacy, and the history of racial justice movement. I'd also like for our students to have access to a curriculum that's historically accurate and representative of contributions of all ethnic groups to the culture of the U.S. As a parent, I'm requesting that an equity curriculum audit task force be created, composed of diverse educators, parents, and diverse community members to ensure that our curriculum is culturally accurate and reflective of the truth through their life lenses and life experience. Thanks for taking the time to listen to my request.
Hi, my name is Janelle Couture, and I have a comment for the item 12.4, return to in-person instruction update. And I'd like to request a very clear discussion around what your expectations are for full-time in-person learning for the 2021 to 22 school year. If there's a possibility that you don't expect to return to full days and that we may continue this hybrid plan for the new school year, parents need to know that now. I'm a mother of 2 young elementary school children at Matthew Turner. I work full-time and I'm the sole income of my family. I can no longer take hours out of my workday to support the hybrid or virtual programs you're offering. I end up not getting any normal parenting time with my children because I'm either doing their schoolwork with them or trying to finish my own work because I haven't been able to work appropriate hours during the day. If I had known this was going to be the situation the entire school year, I would have made different decisions. So all I'm asking for today is that you begin communicating what you expect the 2021 to 22 school schedule to be. That way we can all make the proper decisions for our families. Thanks.
My name is Josh Steiner. This is in regards to the in-person section of the agenda. My comment is that I am in full favor of return to in-person for students. I very much want for my 2 daughters to return to in-person class instruction. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kristen Kelly. My daughter is a student at Benicia High School. I'm calling in regards to agenda item 12.4, return to in-person instruction update. My daughter should be overjoyed to return to in-person learning, but instead the district has only allowed high school students to attend 2 days per week. During those 2 days, she sits in a classroom with very few peers, 1 to 3 to be exact, while other students attend the same class via Zoom. She has little to no interaction with her teachers. Rather, most of her teachers would be allowing their main focus to be on the students on Zoom instead of the students who are physically in the room. Therefore, instead of being thrilled to finally be back at school, she is disappointed to have such a disconnect to staff on campus. After asking her how her first day was, she broke down in tears. She said that it was just a change of scenery from all the other Zooms and that it felt like they were trying to make it miserable so that she didn't want to come back. This is extremely confusing to our family. Why is it that she's allowed to play water polo games with no masks, but when it comes to her education, she's sitting in a normal-sized classroom that is practically empty and ineffective? My husband and I moved our family to this beautiful town 9 years ago. We knew all 3 of our kids would be attending St. Dominic's, but felt good knowing we'd still have wonderful options with the schools in this district if we decided to go public. My daughter transferred to BHS this year, and what a slap in the face it's been. School seems to know how to educate kids properly even during a pandemic. In fact, they're killing it. Because of you guys, they all have wait lists for kids to get in. We have a son who will be a freshman next year. He wants to attend BHS. We want him to. I need to know that both of my children will be in person, full-time, 5 days a week in the fall. I will not let my kids get robbed of another year. If your plans are to continue this crap, I would like to know now so we can plan on either moving our family to a district that is open or find a private school. You have done enough damage. Let's start the healing process. Let these kids get onto a normal education. Please reopen our schools for full-time, in-person learning. Enough is enough.
Hello, this is for closed session comments. My name is Julie Steiner, and I am calling in regards to 2 children I have attending Joe Henderson Elementary School right now, who will be going into the middle school in the fall. I am calling because, unfortunately, we were chosen for both daughters to continue with virtual learning, which is not what we had hoped for. And I have heard talk that there is the possibility of the middle school being hybrid next year, and that it will not be all in person. And I wanted to get more information on that and make it known that our family is very heavily needing both our daughters to be back in person for middle school. So I'd like any sort of information on the status as to what the middle school will be looking like for the fall to be addressed during the meeting. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robert Crowley. I'm a resident in Benicia. We're on Eaton Court. I'm calling in regards to discussion item 12.2, the equity and opportunity update and discussion. I understand the district is currently interviewing for a VP position at Benicia High School, which was previously held by the only African American administrator in the district. There's also a principal position in one of our elementary schools that seems going to be available for new hire. We have a big issue with the racial gap between educators and students within BUSD. Black and brown children are faced with damaging reminder every single day, and they're underrepresented on campuses in this city. This is a great opportunity for the city of Benicia, for BUSD, to seek out Black and brown educators and administrators to come help increase diversity, look at our education from a different lens, and more importantly, allow our Black and brown students to see representation within the the administrator and the educator level that make them feel more safe, more at home, somebody that they can relate to. I highly recommend that we look everywhere when trying to hire these two positions. Thanks for your time.
My name is Jesse Mueller, and I'm a Benicia resident. This is in regard to discussion items 12.4, Return to Person Instruction Update. During these past weeks, my wife and I have been fortunate to send our children back into the classroom, and we've been able to watch the joy and happiness they've shown finally being connected with their teachers and friends again. This is an imperative moment for us to give voice to the inequities that we have within our school community, and to acknowledge that the families that have been impacted the most by COVID are families of color, may not feel safe to bring their children back into their classrooms. Many of these families have faced barriers that made them feel unsupported by our school community even before this pandemic hit. And this past year has just added a layer to the inequities that exist in our community. The past year has shined an even brighter light on how inequities have led to many of our students being underserved. I want to urge our district to prioritize these families and put effective supports and programs in place right now so that our children can feel safe and emotionally supported as they enter their learning environment again. I urge our district to engage in conversations with our community to learn how to better support our families. As part of this, as a parent, I would like to request that an equity curriculum audit task force be created composed of diverse educators, diverse parents, and diverse community members to ensure that our curriculum is culturally accurate and reflective of the truth through their life lenses and life experiences. I request that the community be kept abreast of this work towards more equitable education with equity updates presented during BUSD governing board meetings on a bi-weekly basis. Additionally, the lack of diversity in our BUSD educators is doing a huge disservice for all of our students as they are only receiving a limited perspective and representation of all the beautiful cultures of the country. I ask that our children be provided with access to a safe and equitable learning environment in which teachers and staff are provided with required, robust, anti-racist training, which include restorative justice practices, racial equity training, and trauma-based interventions and practices. Finally, I advocate for all students to have equitable access to mental health services. This goal can be achieved by staffing each school site with a full-time mental health support services composed of school counselors, school psychologists, and teachers who have participated in robust anti-racist trainings to weed out biases that are harmful to the students they serve. Thank you for your time.
My name is Brittany Sapien. I am a mom of 3 children in BUSD. Our twin boys are in kindergarten, and we have one enrolled at Joe Henderson in the AIS program and the other at Robert Semple in the Skills K-5 program. Tonight, I would like to address item 12.4, Return to In-Person Instruction Update. Previewing Dr. Beatson's presentation before the meeting, I was surprised to learn that such a presentation was needed to once again prove to the board that in-person learning is what is best for students. Is this really surprising? Was another outcome expected? Parents, educators, and even students have been arguing that they needed to be brought back to in-person learning at the earliest available date all year long, but those calls were dismissed or outright ignored. It was this board that has dragged their feet for over a year, failing to provide science-based explanations as to why BUSD was the last district in Solano County to return to in-person learning. And yet, here we are again tonight, following in the unfortunate BUSD status quo of failing to move into the right direction in an acceptable timeline. Instead, I would have appreciated hearing from Dr. Beatson about now only just about the great successes of returning students in person, but also learning about the comprehensive plans that we all know Dr. Beeson and her team are capable of making and providing to the district about reopening schools come fall 2021, failing to provide families with a plan, failing to provide insight into the 2021-2022 school year. What will that look like for students is crippling to many families, particularly special education families, as they move into their IEP meetings this spring. How can the district expect parents, teachers, and therapists to meet, discuss, and come up with an agreement to meet the needs of students without this vital information? For those members of the board who need to be reminded, IEPs are federal contracts that outline an individual education plan for the next 365 days from the day of signing for students with disabilities. When the team itself has been given no insights into what the 2021-2022 school year will look like, how can you expect the team to accomplish any such task? Many districts such as Novato, Turlock, Lodi, Mariposa, and several others across the state have been announcing their plans for the upcoming school year. Why is Benicia once again at the back of the pack? I encourage you all to do your due diligence, make some phone calls, collaborate, educate yourselves so that the full in-person plan can be a reality for BUSD. Lastly, parents need to know where the negotiations are with BTA. Transparency is the only thing that is going to reinstill trust and confidence in the district. Continuing to shut parents out will lead to further mistrust. The lack of transparency should outrage everyone. Much of this discord could have been avoided if the district, led by this board, had been open, transparent, and honest this past year. It's time for Benicia to start healing itself. Please do your job. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Krista Heredia. I'm a Benicia resident. I have two student sons who attend Robert Temple Elementary School and one grown son who attended both Benicia Middle School and Benicia High School. I am calling tonight in regard to discussion item 12.2, which is the equity and opportunity update. I'm very eager to hear what will be reported this evening. As I have many weeks before, and I will continue to do so, I strongly advocate for our children to have access to a curriculum that is historically accurate, reflective, and representative of the contributions of all ethnic groups to the culture of the United States. I know that our district is currently going through a curriculum audit, and I am hopeful that as that audit happens, our district is undertaking, I want this audit to eventually produce a classroom experience where our students are learning truth through a diverse range of lenses. So in order to achieve that, I want to specifically request that this group creates an audit task force that can be composed of diverse educators, diverse parents, and diverse community members to ensure that when we look at this curriculum and that when we're making decisions about what to implement and what to change, that we're doing it through a way that is reflective of multiple lenses, not just one lens, multiple lenses, diverse lenses, and life experiences. The next point I want to make about equity, and I hope to hear about this in the update, is the lack of racial diversity among our Benicia Unified School District staff. This is something else that our group has been talking about for weeks and weeks and months and months. There are some key positions open right now, administrative positions that I'm aware of at both the high school and one of our elementary schools. And what is our district doing to go beyond simply saying the words that they're trying to hire for diversity? It's just words until we see the action. And then once our staff are hired, what changes are being made within the district so that our Black and Brown staff members are supported and they're retained? So it's not just about hiring, it's also about retaining talent. Lastly, I want to ask, I hope for tonight specifically what programs or resources that will be required and provided to our staff members, our teachers, and our administrative staff in regard to anti-racist professional development. Things like restorative justice practices, racial equity training, trauma-based intervention, things that are available to help our staff give our students the experience that they deserve on campus, and that is required of them. It's not just something optional. The learning, anti-racism learning needs to be done in a group in order for us to see real results in fact behavior and school environment. So I'm very eager to hear the update this evening, and it's time to see action. The time for planning is done. There's been enough time for planning, and what we need to hear now is specific plans and dates of implementation. And until we do see and hear specific plans and dates, we're going to keep acting.
Good evening. My name is Michael Shepard. My daughter attends BMS and is in grade 8. I would like to make a comment regarding item 3. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this item during this meeting. I'm calling to express my extreme disappointment with the efforts of in-person learning and specifically the hybrid schedule. The 1.5-hour time for in-person learning is extremely difficult for working parents. The rapid commute is disruptive to an already challenging time in the middle of the day. Once the kids are at school, the limited interaction with teachers is again disappointing. The kids routinely attend in-person learning only to have the teachers work remotely regardless and dial in through Zoom. This is not accomplishing my expectations of in-person learning. Communication to the kids has been overly political and extremely opinionated towards county and school policy. This is inappropriate material that teachers are communicating to the students. This is not part of the curriculum, and these policies are not driven, created, or enforced by the students. I have personally worked outside of home since the beginning of the pandemic. I respect the safe precautions required to limit the spread of COVID-19 and to keep people safe. It is disheartening to see many schools successfully and safely return to in-person learning throughout the county, the state, the country, and worldwide. This takes a big commitment and a lot of effort to keep people safe. However, it is being done safely elsewhere. It is disheartening again to try to understand why this same effort and why this same system cannot be put in place for my daughter. I believe what is lost is the lasting mental and emotional damage being done to a once enthusiastic student. My daughter is not alone in feeling like this, I imagine. A once proud, enthusiastic, excited student now returns home routinely in tears, demoralized, disheartened, and disengaged. I stand by to support any effort to improve this system, which, for my family, is clearly not working. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sean Henderson. My address is 159 Incline Place, Benicia, California, 94510, and I'm calling with a general comment. I am a parent of 2 Benicia students, a high schooler and a middle schooler. And I have this nagging worry that we are not in the right place for my middle schooler, who is a Black child. But I'm encouraged by the opportunities that BUSD is presented with right now. And I would just want to call in today to let you know that acting on these is of utmost importance to families like mine and to all Benicia families. First, I understand that there's an effort being made to hire Black faculty, and I applaud that. But it's not enough to try. It is imperative that this happens. My son has had one teacher in his school career that looks like him. This is wrong. Minority students pay a real cost for being in an overwhelmingly white school environment. In fact, I read recently about a study done in 2018 by Johns Hopkins and American University that found out Black students that had one Black teacher by grade 3 were 13% more likely to go to college. But if they had 2 Black teachers, they were 32% more likely to go to college. That's huge. And it's not just Black students that will benefit from more Black and Brown faculty. It's all students who need perspectives from everybody in this country that make contributions to who we are. The second opportunity is the curriculum audit. I am really happy to see that we are auditing our curriculum right now. I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and would really like to see people of color being included in that process. Not just included, but their voices be given a lot of weight so that we can come up with a curriculum that's anti-racist, historically accurate, that's representative of the contributions of all ethnicities, and that's culturally responsive. The third thing is equity training. I really believe this should be required for all teachers and staff, and should include things like workshops and real-world activities where they really learn how to make a difference.
Thank you.
That concludes the public comment.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for those that reached out. We appreciate your comments. Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 11, which is the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be approved by the board in one motion. There will be no discussion on these items unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be pulled and discussed. So at this time, do I have a motion to accept the consent calendar as written?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you. Second? Cece? Thank you, Ms. Scrubs. Roll call vote, please. Ms. Martinez? Yes.
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 Okay. We'll move on to item number 12. 12.1 is the Benicia Grad Night Light. And I have here with me, there she is, Miss Manukian. Has been involved, she's a parent, and she's been involved in planning for the grad night this year for our senior students. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you now so you can share what information you'd like us to know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to address the board, and thank you, Dr. Young, for the invitation. I think actually it's a great opportunity for Benicia Grad Night to not only tell everyone what the Grad Night is about, but also to give you an update about the changes in Grad Night this year as it relates to COVID-19. I believe most of you, I recognize most of your faces, and I'm quite sure that many of you do actually know about Grad Night, but just by way of background, the Benicia Grad Night is a program that is developed for graduating high school seniors from Benicia High and Liberty High. And it is a program that allows for a celebration of the grads on graduation night. And it is hosted by a nonprofit organization that is fueled by 100% volunteers. Volunteers in our community are parents, and they are old graduates and teachers and all sorts of people who feel strongly that it's important for our graduates to be able to celebrate in a safe and sober environment. I think most of everyone here tonight is old enough to remember probably the 80s and 90s. And during that period of time, there were, frankly, a large number of fatalities and accidents nationwide that involved graduates, especially on graduation day, often involving drinking and driving accidents. And so in response to that, nationwide, many communities, including Benicia, started a grad night program so we could sort of ensure that all graduates who wanted to could come and celebrate in a location that was safe, and that they could then, of course, after that celebration, return safely to their families. So Benicia Grad Night has been a program in town for, I think this is the 32nd year that it's been active. And it is a program that is supported by, of course, some of our biggest supporters are the Benicia Police Officers Association and the Benicia Fire Department, and other groups that are interested in creating this protection for our seniors to allow them to have a fun graduation night. The part of the Benicia Grad Night this year that will look different than the years in past is typically the graduation party is indoors and outdoors. And of course, this year it'll be all outdoors. The entire event will be outdoors with the exception of when students need to use the restroom. And other than that, it'll be a 100% outdoor party for them. The duration of grad night is traditionally begins about 8:30 in the evening and it wraps up about 2:30 in the morning. Some communities actually keep their grads all night into the morning and they actually sleep over, but Benicia's wraps up about 2:30. This year, though, it'll wrap up about 12:30. So the program will be shorter than usual. It'll be all outdoors. And of course, we will have all of the COVID protections that are required by the various health departments and regulations throughout the state of California, and specifically whatever tier we're in come graduation day. So other than it being outdoors, it'll be a shorter length. And then, of course, typically grad night costs each student about $200 for admission. This year, the admission ticket will be $50, so it's significantly less expensive. Although we will still offer, like we do every year, a scholarship program for any student who cannot afford admission. Our goal is to have as many graduates attend as possible. And this year, our estimation for the number of graduates at grad night will probably only be about 150 students. And this is partly because of COVID and also because we had a large group of seniors graduate early this year. From the school in December. I'm sure you all know that. So the program has also modified the activities to allow for appropriate social distancing among the participants so that they can still have a good time but remain socially distanced from each other. We'll have additional volunteers this year to assist in maintaining the sanitation stations that will be provided throughout the program. And there'll also be volunteers to remind seniors, if necessary, to maintain their distance from each other while they enjoy the evening. The president of our association, Judy Brink, I think this is her 17th year either participating or running this program, and she is maintaining many of the things that we would already do. Of course, there's insurance for the program, and there are waivers that the kids engage in, and their parents sign as well. So all of the sort of the fundamental structure of the program will remain the same, but there'll be a heightened, concern with respect to COVID. So I am happy if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about grad night or specifically how grad night will look different in 2021.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Manukian. Appreciate all the words and the effort and the time that has gone into trying to get this to go forward. Before I reach out to my colleagues, I wanted to see if Mr. Thompson wanted to add anything to this before we open it for discussion.
Sure, President Zeta. Yeah, thanks. I was going to request that. So the one thing I kind of want to weigh in on is in the 7 years I've been at the high school as VP, I've been a liaison to grad night, and their entire operation and their approach is flawless. I mean, this group is very dedicated. They've come in on non-COVID years and have transformed a basic classroom into, movie theater that rivals what you see at Disneyland. I mean, they do really fantastic stuff. There's like 18-wheelers full of stuff that show up and then disappear in seconds. They're always respectful of our policies and our infrastructure. Really, the summary is, if they say they can do it, they can do it. That's my experience. I have full faith that their plan is really well thought out. I was able to meet with Ms. Manukian, Ms. Tillotson, Ms. Alava, and Ms. Brink, and they have a very good plan. Even from the safety perspective, they've kind of thought it through, and so I have full confidence they'd be able to do this well.
Thank you for your input. I'd like to reach out to my colleagues to see if anybody, raise your hand if you have any questions or concerns. Dr. Moss.
Yes, thank you for the information about grad night. So I'm curious to know, with it's going to be outside, can you give us an idea of like location on campus or structural wise? Is there going to be a tent, or is it booths, or just kind of give us an idea?
Sure. Dr. Moss, by way of background, Benicia Grad Night traditionally is an event at the high school that is both indoors and outdoors. So a good portion of Grad Night is always outside. And the portion of the Grad Night that's outside, mostly in my view, kind of resembles sort of a carnival. There are all kinds of activities for the kids to do outside, and that generally takes place in what I would call the quad of the high school. We use the space between the buildings. We provide there's fencing in the perimeter of that quad area, if you can kind of visually picture that. And the fencing is, quite frankly, to contain the seniors inside so that we can guarantee their whereabouts. And that's one of the pledges that the organization wants to make to parents, is that when their parents sign them up for grad night, that they in fact know they're at grad night. And so the infrastructure of the high school is great because it allows us to sort of define those boundaries for everyone involved. And so if you can picture the quad, that's basically where the outdoor grad night is.
Anything else, Dr. Moss?
Oh, no, that was it. Thank you.
Mrs. Ferrucci, anything?
Yeah, actually, I was just going to thank them for keeping up the tradition. I've actually been on that committee for years, since I've had multiple children go through, and I've actually served as the chair. It's a phenomenal event. If you've not actually participated yourself, I think it's a great way for the kids to have their final send off from the high school and with their friends. And it's an amazing event, lots to do, lots of fun activities, and you don't see very many of them get bored. It keeps them pretty busy. So I'm very grateful that the parent groups are still continuing to provide this service. So thank you.
Mr. Maselli, any comments? Or nope, nothing. Hi, Mrs. Grubbs.
I just wanted to say thank you to you and your group for putting this on. I know there are extra constraints due to COVID, and it's been such a year, and it's so much work. It is crazy fun. I worked it when my kids were going through, and I know that the planning is phenomenal, but also the extra steps you have to go through just make it that much more. It needs, you put so much effort into it, you and your crew. So thank you so much. Yay for those seniors. They get to do it this year.
Yeah, yay for the seniors.
Okay, so seeing that everybody that wanted to speak has already spoken, I also applaud everything that you guys have done. I still have some concerns because it is COVID and we're like splitting up our graduation into two, to be careful about anything with the kids being too close together. And seeing as there's going to be a couple hundred kids, 150, 200 kids, plus I read somewhere there's 100 adults. That's a lot of people outside. So that just makes me a little bit concerned, because I think when you guys were saying something about not having, kids aren't going to interact directly with each other, but based on what the things that we could be doing at this particular event, which I don't think you've locked any of that down completely yet. It seems like those are things that kids, like if there's DJ and dancing, they're going to be dancing together. There's going to be other things that go on where they're going to be interacting together. And I know that you said you're going to be having all the equipment available there to help satisfy the fact that it has to be decontaminated or whatever word it is, disinfected, I guess is a better choice of words. And that you're going to have that available. I mean, do you think you're going to be able to take care of all that while this function is going on between students? That's my fear. And so I'm just putting it out there. It may not be something that people are happy hearing. I mean, we're already making precautions using the graduation to be split. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, hopefully to put you at ease, Ms. Zada, a few things that I can tell you that we have planned. To begin with, when the students arrive, we will be able to take their temperature. Well, I should start with, by the first week of June, I'm happy to know, and I'm sure you all know, that everyone who wants a COVID vaccine will be fully vaccinated by the first week of June, including all of our seniors, because they all qualify. So that's a very, yeah, that's a very good piece of news right there. But when they come to the graduation party, they will be required to wear a mask. We'll have masks available if they lose or forget their mask. We'll have sanitation stations throughout the event, and if our budget allows, we're also going to provide them with individual sanitation devices for themselves that they can carry with them, and they can, if they want to, they can continue to sanitize throughout the night without even going to one of the sanitation systems. But in my personal opinion, based on my observations of my own senior and others, I think the kids are very responsible. I think they're very accustomed now to social distancing. I think it's second nature, frankly, in my personal observations. So I don't expect any difficulties with getting the kids to maintain those distances. We're selecting particular activities that allow for that. I don't want to necessarily ruin the surprise, because our graduation plans, our party, it's always a surprise for the seniors. But we're selecting games and events and things that they can do, essentially alone. Of course, there'll be kids nearby, but it'll be a bit different because we're expecting them to be distanced from each other. So I have confidence that the kids will continue to follow the instruction that they've been given at the high school. And I really, I did want to clarify, we have probably 100 volunteers, but we do not have 100 volunteers at the event that evening. So, but yeah, there is a small army of volunteers, don't get me wrong, but they are often behind the scenes. They work in shifts, and they set up different parts of grad night, and then they go away and a different shift comes and does whatever they need to do. But the hands-on night of the event volunteers, there's nowhere near 100 adults. And the adults I would expect to be vaccinated by then. I wouldn't know of any reason why they wouldn't be.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. I must have misread it when I saw the 100 volunteers, but yeah, it makes sense that it would be partially there at different times of the day to make this happen. And then the one other thing I had, and I think I had asked Dr. Young about this, was you had mentioned that it's a group, it's a nonprofit group that puts this event on every year, as it has in the past, aside from, I think last year we didn't do it, but it's a nonprofit. Does your nonprofit have an insurance policy? And I think maybe Mr. Thompson will understand this. And is it that overrides like an umbrella over an event like that that's on campus but not school sanctioned?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's some understandable confusion, even when we talk to parents as administrators, that because the work that they're dedicating that they do for the students is directly related to our seniors, there's some natural confusion that it's a school event. But really on the 5,000-foot level, this is an outside user group that has always respected our property and our infrastructure and is requesting use of it specifically for the benefit of our seniors. I also think it's important to point out they graduated earlier in the day. So really there are students and they do a great job of having a waiver and the parents do sign off. And yes, they have always provided a very substantial insurance policy, as every outside user group does, to cover liability. But from my perspective, these are adults that are choosing to attend an event that just happens to be at school. And so, I'm as safety coordinator, I have safety concerned students. I don't think you're wrong from that perspective, but I also believe in choice and liberty. And I think this is an opportunity for seniors and their families that would like to participate to do so. And again, can't repeat it enough. They're fantastic. I mean, Grad Night always does a great job. They're great to work with. And so I have full faith in what they're saying they can do.
That's amazing and wonderful. I'm glad to hear that clarification as well. It cleared up some things in my mind. So thank you for that. I'm excited for these kids. I'm really excited. I might stop by and play.
You'll have to bring a mask.
Oh, I have one in every pocket all the time. I'm good. Thank you so much for sharing that information. I hope that makes our families excited. It's awesome.
Thank you, Miss Minokian. You did an outstanding job. And again, this is not a typical item that we bring to the board, but since we live in different times and really good, interesting questions around just making sure we're ensuring everybody's safety. But you did a fantastic job of delineated all the safety measures that you will put in place. And I think the trustees and the rest of us have the utmost confidence in the group that create a great event for our graduating seniors, and it's a much safer place for them to be there than. That's the intent of it from the beginning. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your support, everyone.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Okay, item 12.2, equity and opportunity update and discussion. And this one, Dr. Beatson, you are up. No, not you. Yes, you.
I'm actually going to turn it over to Ms. Rice, who will take you through tonight's presentation. So,
thank you, Mrs. Rice. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Benicia community. I am here. Let me just get it queued up. And all right, I am here tonight to give you the BUSD Equity and Opportunity Update. But before I do, just jump right in. After that presentation from Ms. Minokian, again, thank you for that. I do want to put a plug in for that Benicia Grad Night. I volunteered for that. It is magical. And I will date myself by sharing that I attended Benicia High School's Grad Night in 1992. So I think we were like the fourth year, and it really is. It just puts a bow on the end of the year. So if you're looking for something to sprinkle a little sparkle in our Benicia seniors, there's definitely places for you to volunteer. All right, so back to the presentation. I always like to start with our BUSD vision, and I think it is completely appropriate for our equity and opportunity update, where all students achieve at their highest potential in an engaging, inspiring, and challenging learning environment. So our focus tonight is at the center, obviously, is supporting student learning. We're going to reflect on some data as requested by Dr. Moss at our last board meeting. And then we will update you on monitoring our student groups. And I will share actions identified pre-COVID that I shared and where we are with those, as well as sharing some new actions and plans with you. And if you have any questions along the way, please, feel free to ask. While I'm presenting, I don't see any of you, so just go ahead and jump on in. All right, so I'm about to share some data with you, but some of the overall points is that looking at our students, They're achieving at levels consistent with spring of 2020. So that was right when we went with COVID. Overall, our students are achieving at higher levels than pre-COVID. Our student groups that we progress monitor are still performing below our overall. So still having the performance gap, as identified before. And then, with that said, our progress monitored student groups are also achieving at higher levels pre-COVID, and I'll explain that we have different measures due to COVID, and that you'll see that the learning gap is less in mathematics than in English language arts. My apologies, my forward moving arrow is not working. There we go. All right, so this is a table that you've seen before. In blue is our CASP, our state assessment that we take every year, except for this past year due to COVID. I've shared this before where we've looked across the grade level to see how we're doing, and we've also looked diagonally at our cohort data. Also on this graph, you'll see that for 2020, spring of 2020 when we went out for COVID, and then 2021, that was at our trimester 2 for elementary and our quarter 3 for our secondary. We have in the green are our what we call FMP scores. That's our reading level assessment that we do in elementary, Fontes and Pinnell. And then in purple, we have our Scholastic Reading Inventory, our SRI scores. And then in red, these are current grades. So you can see that we're performing similarly from 2020 to 2021. But overall, with grades and reading scores, our scores are higher than what we were performing on CAS. And then we also have our student groups that we're monitoring because we've identified that we have learning gaps with these particular groups. Again, we have our CASP scores. And then we have 2 columns here, 2020 and 2021 of our secondary scores. The red, again, to remind you, are percentage of students meeting or exceeding standards. And this is reflected by grades. And then we also have our elementary students. And you can see that they're performing similarly from 2020 to 2021. But also still, we are identifying that there are learning gaps for all of our identified student groups. But when you look at how they're doing in COVID via grades versus the CASP measure, the gaps are smaller. I also linked in the notes 2 different data points that I won't click on and pull up, but I will just speak on. I also added some further data because we're constantly looking and monitoring the data of some points, some further points for SRI. We've dug deeper. So the Benicia Middle School is giving the Scholastic Reading Inventory, and they gave it this year, they gave it last year, and they gave it pre-COVID. And they've actually, the students have grown and improved each year, and they're performing actually higher now on the Scholastic Reading Inventory than they were pre-COVID. I also included our DLAC presentation. We had our District English Language Advisory Committee meeting last night, and we were digging through data. We were working on doing a needs assessment that we will get out to our families of English learner students to really intentionally look at how to support our English learners and their families. And one of the data points that we were looking at is how our English learners are performing compared to all. But the other piece that we looked at was our students that are considered RFEP or reclassified, where they have either passed CELT or our LPAC assessment, also met our other rigorous criteria And then they no longer have to take that assessment, but we still monitor their progress to see if we need to intervene and provide support. And our RPEP students are performing either at how all of our students are performing at average, or they're performing above. They're really doing well, our reclassified students. In math, this is just like the ELA data. Here we have our CASP again, that we look from year to year, and we monitor by cohort as they're moving through the grades. And then we're looking at 2020 in the spring and 2021 just passed currently. These are current grades. We did not have grades here for 3, 4, 5 because last spring, our standards-based report cards, the teachers gave grades by narrative. But you can see again, we're performing at a similar level as we were last spring. And then when we look at the data again, for our identified student groups that we're monitoring, in mathematics, we still are having from year to year those performance or learning gaps. When we look at our secondary from 2020 to 2021, again in mathematics, you can see that there is still a learning gap, but it is not as prominent as it was in English language arts, and that they are performing, all the different groups are performing stronger than they were compared to pre-COVID in CASP. And then also, when I presented the CASP data, so that would have been the beginning of last year when I was presenting the 2018-2019 CASP, then we also identified some actions that we were working on. So I wanted to go back to those actions and show you what we have either started, initiated, and nothing, I can't say anything's ever finished, right? It's always ongoing. So we had a focus on building relationships, and we have begun training in culturally responsive practices for all teachers. We actually started that last school year pre-COVID. All teachers went through at least an initial training in culturally responsive practices. For those that had already started the work, there were some other levels offered to them. We also have provided the beginning level of training for all teachers in Universal Design for Learning. We have worked to expand our DLAC, and we're still looking for parents and families to be a part of our district English Language Advisory Committee, and as well as it was our Benicia African American Moms Group, which now has expanded to moms, dads, and whoever is welcome. And we're working on possibly making it a formal APAC, but it has grown. And then our focus on our low performing student block grant work groups. We implemented a systematic phonics program in grades TK through 2nd. We have focused support on our struggling students, and we have made more intentional work out of our reading tutors and expanded what they do. We trained our intervention teachers at the elementary level in Orton-Gillingham, and as they've been monitoring our students, even through COVID, they've definitely seen growth in what we're doing, and a big attributing factor they feel is their focus on using these strategies with the students. We have not yet done an analysis of the middle school system, so that's still on the list of to-doing. We did focus and do a study on name and need, and identifying students that are struggling and really digging into what the need was, and focusing on an action. We began working with a city-wide reading campaign, and we're ready to do our launch, and then COVID hit. So that is still in the works. And once we can, we will re-engage with that. And you also heard a component of that I know June Regis spoke today, and I know some of their books that they got out to their preschoolers also had to do with the Benicia reading campaign. And then we also did the secondary incentive plans, and that has to do with CAS and increased supports for English language learners. And then some new actions that we've added since that last presentation is we have worked on increasing equity and inclusivity in our adoption and renewal protocols. So when teachers are going to adopt a new curriculum, we take them through a rigorous process where there's many steps in how they're looking at their curriculum. And then they go through this adoption protocol where they're looking at key focuses. They rank them, and then we come back and discuss them to see if it meets the criteria. Another level that we just added was we also have, it usually happens more secondary, but where teachers are using a particular curriculum and then a new updated version comes out. And in the past, we would just update to the new version. But now what we're doing to really focus on equity and opportunity is we're also taking the team through the renewal protocol, which they go through and look at how it's meeting the standards, how many different entry points are for our students, what different equity pieces are shown in the curriculum. So that's something we've updated. And then, you know, as you've heard by parents sharing, that we are working on a curriculum equity audit, and we're working on that currently through our district curriculum council. And we went through and looked at many different tools, and we focused in on a tool out of the University of Washington, and it's a very in-depth, rigorous tool. So what we're doing currently is looking at how we can, one, train teachers on how to use the tool, two, look at how the group of teachers, so we're talking about not just having teachers look across a grade level or across a subject matter, but having vertical articulation happen. So that's one piece within our teaching community, but also then having a team, which it will tap into establishing a district equity team here so that we can get more perspective from the rich culture of our community and be able to have that feedback and some of the expertise of our equity partners to really give us feedback and guidance in this equity audit process. So it's not a quick 1-2 to do. It's definitely being thought out and intentional and in the works. The other thing that we're working on simultaneously is hiring outreach. And Dr. Gill is heading up this charge. And hiring outreach isn't just hiring new staff. It's really looking into recruiting, what our recruiting processes are, and what our hiring processes are, and more importantly, how our retaining processes are. And we're really looking for a pool of highly qualified staff with a focus on Black educators and educators of color. And then as well as that, we're also hand in hand looking at our onboarding process. So as we're doing this work in Benicia Unified, such as doing professional learning here and working through equity modules, how then do new staff in Benicia get up to speed where we are? So we're working on what that onboarding process is, and to make sure that people have under their belt, one, the equity work that we're doing, and two, that they're trained as well. Tomorrow, I'm really excited to work with our equity partners. We have a full day planning session with Nicole Anderson Consulting, Epic Education, and Lindsay Fuller. These are, I want to call them the dynamic trio. They really are a really knowledgeable group. Epic Education, headed up by Dr. Nancy Dome. We'll be working with her tomorrow, as well as Lindsay Fuller, who I know you've heard of, leading up some of the professional learning communities that our teachers sought out and we're working with, and now we're partnering with as a district. And then Nicole Anderson, she is has been doing this work across the state and is also one of our BUSD parents. So we're really excited about that. As I touched on, we have Epic for Education Equity modules, which our teachers began working on at our first professional learning day. I know Dr. Moss, you asked how many have actually done what was expected or more. And as of right now, we have at least 88% of our staff has completed the required modules plus some, and it's still open and people are currently utilizing them. And they're also being utilized and brought into components of staff meetings. And then we have a professional learning community happening right now with Lindsay Fuller. She's heading that up. And like I said, we're working on establishing a district-wide equity team. And we'll be working with our equity partners on doing that, but really having this overarching hub of input with representation from students, parents, certificated, classified, committees, and representing the diversity of our community. And then also, now moving on to curriculum, we've increased digital curriculum for differentiation, and accessibility. We've added on several different resource components to our base curriculum to enhance what the kids are learning, but to not just enhance, but also add entry points for all. I touched on reading tutors. We've increased their capacity this year. We're working, the Benicia Middle School is working with the California Literacy Initiative Reading Grant, which has a focus on our special ed students, as well as bringing the rigor up for all students in their reading and writing. We have increased support for English language learners. We've done additional outreach this year to families such as our English learner families to do some check-in and make sure their needs are being met. We are offering after-school math and ELA support. We have attendance monitoring and support. So in the past, you know, attendance was monitored, but there was more intervention when we got to that 10 absence mark. But now we're checking in and supporting when we get to that 3rd absence mark. Student Services is also working on looking into providing transportation support. That will be post-COVID, but to support our McKinney-Vento or homeless families in getting them some support in getting to school. Currently, we're contracting with Brickspace at the middle school, and this is in-person support provided outside of when they're in their in-person learning time, and we're offering, we've provided some scholarships for students to participate as well. We just talked to Fari Ko, if you're familiar with her, owner of Brickspace, and she had some phenomenal things to share and just how engaged, respectful, and just brilliant the students are that she's working with. So it's just a really exciting opportunity. Miss Tanya Courtney is still heading up, getting all those meals out to kids, and we're still able to provide the free meals for both breakfast and lunch, and for families to pick up and take home. So that was not everything going on, but just what's been going on since we updated you last. And before taking questions, I just want to leave you with two quotes that really have spoken to me. And the first one is, all of us did not have equal talent, but all of us should be given the opportunity to develop our talent. And that's John F. Kennedy. And then this last one is, effective diversity efforts must represent mirrors and windows, a space where all people see themselves, mirrors, and connect with others, windows, in ways that foster an equitable society. And as Benicia Unified, we believe wholeheartedly in this. And this mirrors and windows work, just speaks to me in the work that we've been doing in equity and opportunity and diversity, where you really have to work from within and also see the world around you, as well as our students need to see themselves in what they're learning, as well as different people around them. So that's what we're working on. Any questions?
I do have a question.
Stop my share so I can see your face.
For bringing together the data, I do really appreciate that. So at least
absolutely,
a clearer picture. But I did want to just kind of refer back to one of the slides, just because I want to make sure that if any of our community members who are listening, so they can really understand as we're looking at the data with all the numbers and everything. So, for example, on the ELA slide, just as an example, over time, like say starting 2015, you shared the data in terms of how students have been performing, right, with ELA, for example. So if we look at our students who are English learners, just as an example, so families, you want me to wait until you pull it up?
Yeah,
I'm looking at, because I'm looking at it on my other computer.
Like, where did it go? Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Go ahead, keep sharing, and then I'll get it out.
Yeah. Just wanted to so we all clearly have the picture. So from 2015, we have the data, and then you moved us all the way up to 2021. So, for example, if we look at English learners in 2015, out of our English learner population, only 38% were at where they were either met the standard or exceeded. Correct. So as we look at the numbers, we can kind of see that was the percentage of that student population, and that's how they were doing. Correct?
Let me just pull that up. Sorry, I was really still stuck in where did it go. I'm so sorry. All right, so you were talking about this slide 4.
Yeah, I think I was looking at the other one.
This one.
Yeah, it was that one. Yeah, so just to just to have a clear picture. So we do see that there has been some progress just over time.
Correct.
What it's looking like. So okay, so just kind of looking at our subgroups is what I was really kind of concerned with too. And then also I noticed that with our students who were like our houselessness families. So is that to say that we didn't have any data, or we didn't have any students who identified in that category during that?
No, they have to reach we have to have a certain number of students before we actually get scores on the dashboard. And I'm trying to think of what year. Dr. Beetson, I know it's just been in the past, I want to say 3 years, that they started reporting out on homeless foster youth. But we did not have the numbers during these years, and we did in 2019 to actually receive scores.
Okay. All right. So it looks like we've made some progress, though, just overall, as you kind of indicated. And do we know, were you guys able to identify like maybe what those key areas were that either caused the dips or caused the the decline? Were you able to identify anything in any conversations, or just kind of looking at the data? Was it?
As far as dips and declines, like when we would look back and dig back in as a whole, and we've looked at data slides, year after year this way as well. If we go with our groups, we can look from year to year that we may have like from 4th grade 57%, and then we say in 2018 we're at 56%. But for the most part overall, we've increased going from cohort to cohort. Now, one thing that we have noticed, and I shared at the beginning of last year with you all as well, I don't think Dr. Moss, you were here then though, but we do notice a decrease from elementary to middle. So that's been something that we've been talking about as far as that focus on transitioning from going to elementary school into a middle school and the different things that they're faced with. So that's been an area of focus, and that was a strong focus also pre-COVID, and then, you know, many things we're also focusing on. But there wasn't one like cause that we were able to identify as far as a dip, except for when we look at math per se, or even, well, what's interesting is in ELA we went up, but this was the shift of going from STAR to CASP and raising the rigor, you know, of the assessment. That was something that we identified. But one particular thing, I'd have to actually honestly look back from some notes when we did our teacher dive in our content collaboration.
Ms. Rice, we can also talk about in on the student groups. One of the struggles in our demographics is our number of students. So particularly if we look at English language learners, is very small. So we only have 2.8% of our students district-wide that are classified as English language learners. And in a year where we have a lot of reclassifications, that will really adjust the performance level, because it only takes a couple of students to really swing the percentages. Right. In a different way. And I remember it was several years ago, we hadn't reclassified in a while, and then there was a bigger reclassification, so it made a bigger adjustment when we looked at our overall grade. So that was one thing. The other thing with the English language learner is the test changed. And I don't remember, Ms. Rice, I'm not sure exactly what year it was, just a few years ago, it moved from the CELT
to LPAC.
To LPAC, right. Which I believe was much more rigorous, and students have to get a 4 on that. Like they have to meet the highest level on all parts of that assessment to pass and to get reclassified now.
And then I have another question too, in terms of all of the services and supports that you've started to put in place. And then you gave us the information on the participation. You said 88% of the staff has participated thus far. And then, so I'm curious to know how is staff supported in this continuous effort and conversation? So, for example, if the modules are given to the staff for them to participate on their own, so to speak, is there ever a time where they actually come together, you know, and have this continual conversation about what they're learning, what they're doing? Do they have opportunities to be able to watch each other in some type of way? I know it's different now. We know with COVID, so we can't quite visit. Well, you can still actually visit classrooms to see, to do like these kind of learning walks, so to speak. So are you been able to do any of that?
Well, so that initially was the missing piece. Was, you know, we had the EPIC modules. The beauty of it was that there was a lot of choice. You know, our bottom line was they had to get through at least 2 modules, and they had choice within 7, but it really was that discussion piece. So we did offer 2 professional learning opportunities, followed up with an EPIC presenter that went through some of their different protocols, and then gave an opportunity to ask questions. We did breakout rooms and discuss. Now, we did not have, that was not a mandatory training, as we are thin on that at this point because we had our big trainings, but those were offered. And as well as we've done follow-up with, Dr. Beetson has led us through admin council in pulling out components of the EPIC modules to model for management staff to then bring it back to their sites. And I know different sites, such as elementary sites, are coming together through coming up with their equity teams to focus on. But that is something as we're planning now already. So we're trying to finish strong and plan forward. How our professional learning goes, if we integrate some modules, there has to be a key debrief section, and what will that look like? So that is a topic actually for next week in District Curriculum Council.
So, Stephanie, can I also ask a question? And I know I sit on Curriculum Council, so I'm probably going to hear the answer to this question, but I know the blue that that Yosemite and you have been referring to as a different assessment. So if we look at the 2019, 20, 2021 data, there is a drop when you go from 2020 to 21. So I am assuming that that's part of what we're going to be addressing as we go forward with summer school programs, which as we go forward in September. Because if you go all the way down each achievement group, there is definitely a drop from last year to this year. If you look at the other slide, which is by grade level, if you look at the cohorts, there's definitely a drop. And that's kind of what I was watching for, to see where we were last year versus where we were this year. Obviously, one of the biggest impacts, and we've had this conversation before in Curriculum Council, is what the kids have lost this past year. So when you're looking and seeing, for example, 74 going down to 70, 77 dropping down to 65, we're definitely seeing that there is a loss. And I think we're only looking at grades, report card grades. Is that right?
The red are grades. The green is
the Fontes and Pinnell,
level.
Right?
Yes, and the purple is the Scholastic Reading Inventory.
Okay, so we're not even comparing apples to apples. Then we're looking at
because we have
totally different measures.
Yeah,
but the 6, 7, 8 you can look at. That's Scholastic Reading Inventory. So that's probably the most accurate. Similar to
and
similar
6
measure.
to 7 is doing what typically happens. They increase at 7 because they lose it at 5th.
And they did 6,
7th to 8th as well. And then when we look at 2018, we actually increased pre-COVID from 2018 to 2019 to 2020. And that's what I have attached here as well. And that's what I shared with you, Ms. Frucci. Yeah, so there is some growth. We could look and discern, why is there some drop here? I'm sure there are many different reasons. There's many layers to the onion, but I definitely think our rigor has increased. But when we look at as far as our next slide, that shows our student groups. They're still we're definitely, we know we need to do something for our groups.
Yeah,
there's definitely a learning gap. But in different groups, there's less of a gap in grades per se than there was in CASP scores. So those are all different things. And like Dr. Moss was saying, we have several questions and things we're trying to tease out to identify, what some of the what's are. So that is an ongoing discussion and process for sure.
And I think I have one more question, just in terms of the different levels of support for, in terms of we have these tutoring programs and things like that. Have you been looking at other types of services that may be of support? I know I had asked about a presentation from the Willie B. Atkins program, for example. Or is there any discussion in terms of maybe other partnerships that might help help students? Because I also want to know that when students graduate, that they are not it's not a mystery. It's like not a mystery in terms of if they want to go into the workforce or into a trade, or if they decide they want to go to college. I mean, like I would hope that we're having conversations with students as early as possible, so that so that they kind of know, or if they give an idea, they have an idea of what possibilities are for them. So I'm just
Dr. Moss, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for bringing that up, because when we prepare these slides, we have to get it ready the week prior. A lot has happened in that week. Dr. Beeson and I actually met yesterday, day before, with the Willie B. Atkins group. And we are looking into having some sort of partnership with them. We had an amazing conversation, an amazing presentation of everything they offer to our students, 8th grade through 12th. They do everything that Dr. Moss discussed, is really investing in the students, helping them set up a plan, monitoring the students after they graduate to see, what trade they end up in or what school they end up in. It's really a really strong mentorship program that really hones in on life skills and things that students connect and relate to. And it is a program that really shines a light on our African American students. All of the leaders, or at least from what I understand, are African Americans. So they, are seeing themselves and really having that strong mentor opportunity. So yes, we are looking into ways to partner with them.
Okay, good. Yeah, they have judges who participate, so it's good to be able to see, to be able to build partnerships, and then to see people not only who look like you, but people who are also successful. And I know that they help all students. So, I know it's open to all students, but they definitely are there to support students. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, they were amazing. It gives you goosebumps when you talk about it. It's great. Thank you. Any other questions?
I think everybody's asked who would like to ask. I want to thank you, Ms. Rice, for putting this together. It's a lot of information, and I want to say I appreciate the fact that you worked on these in advance and had them attached to our agenda. So that happened in all of our different areas, and I just want to say I know I really appreciate having the information. Sorry if there should have been stuff that could have been modified a little bit more, but I appreciated having it in advance, so thank you. And I just want to say, you have 12,165 emails.
President,
I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. Oh my gosh. Anyway, thank you for the
absolutely.
Trustee Grubbs has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, she's not on my screen. Sorry. Go right ahead.
I actually have a concern. If we could go back, because I'd like to share my screen for in a minute.
Do you want me to stop sharing, or did you want me to show something first?
Oh no, are you done with your presentation, Stephanie?
Yes, I could be done with my presentation. Absolutely. I thought you had a question for me. Sorry.
No, I have a comment. I have actually a concern, but I wanted to.
Okay.
I do want to say how I appreciate all the work that's being done in regards to equity, and but I do have a concern.
Okay.
And before I comment, I want to clearly state that my message tonight has nothing to do with skill or creativity of any group. I know it's been a really hard year. But that being said, I'd like to acknowledge all the data diving and trainings that have been offered and accepted and participated in. I really appreciate all that work that's gone into this. I'd also like to point out that the trainings and the data gathering inequity, if they're not practiced in real time with all stakeholders, if the stakeholders aren't aware of possible inequities, it can be a really unfortunate issue. So if I can just share my screen for a second. I want to, oh no, where'd it go? I've lost my, I'm sorry. It's been a long time since I've done this. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So at the last board meeting, we were shown these great dividers, right? These are three-sided see-through dividers. And I was under the impression that all the elementary schools had these three-sided see-through dividers, because this is what students need to learn, to see their teacher, to see their peers, etc. So those were great. But I was unfortunately incorrect in my assumption. One of the schools that was, one of the elementary schools was given one-sided solid dividers. I'll show you. That looked like this. And you can see a clear difference, right? These are one-sided dividers. You can't see through them. The kids can't see the teacher in certain areas. The teacher can't see the kids in the back of the room, where this kind of solves this. So as you can see, there's really a clear difference here.
Ms. Grubbs, this is Dr. Young. I know that you were very forward thinking and put those questions out to us. And I think, is Mr. Romero still with us? I think he had an opportunity to weigh in on that. Would you like him to comment on those real quick to address your concern?
Well, what I wanted to say.
Oh, wait, can I say one more thing? That I wonder if is this related to the return to school setup, or
this is more an equity issue.
Okay.
And do you want me to show you the pictures again?
I wanted to see.
I see this as a student. I see this as an inequitable situation for those students. Now, I hope that situation has been rectified. But what I want to say is that it's important for all of us to look through the lens of equity. So when we're planning, when we're looking at different aspects of a classroom and of student learning, we need to look through that lens of equity. And this to me, and it's just me, wasn't an equitable situation. So now my question is, has it been rectified?
So, hello. You bring up a fantastic point. So know that the backstory of this has been an ever-changing situation that has happened. As we originally ramped up for the return to school, those early pictures were of what we could find out there. We had a limited supply of materials that we could find and possibly afford.
Mr.
So
Romero,
actually,
weren't we provided with a lot of money for PPE?
Yeah, so the picture you're looking at, to be clear, is real early in our trying to reconfigure the classrooms. So at the time that those dividers were put up, there weren't any pre-manufactured dividers anywhere. And Robert Semple was actually the first to get those custom dividers. As time went on, then the need for those dividers became more and more in demand, and manufacturing began. So not to contradict what you're saying, but Robert Semple actually had those dividers before any of the other elementary schools. So I don't know that it's truly inequity as much as it was the timing of what became available. And so if you look at it in that respect, they were the first to be outfitted with any kind of barriers that might help for the students to come back. And
so then
later on,
when the other schools ordered these particular dividers, then was Robert Semple able to order those dividers as well?
that is correct. And that's probably my mistake, is when I asked each site what their needs were, I was asking the maintenance people that were at those sites. I didn't go directly to the administrators. I went to, because at the time that we had found these dividers, there was still nobody on campus. It was just strictly maintenance. So I went ahead and said, hey, what do you need? And we based it on the amount of tables versus desks that were in these classrooms. And so they said, okay, we'll need this many and we'll need this many. And so I got a count from everyone. And Robert Semple had gone above and beyond and outfitted the entire school with custom dividers. And then they had gone back and cut out and made amends of what they had had. Since then, the teachers had come back, rearranged their rooms, didn't necessarily like what they saw, took down a lot of what was made. And since then, since this has come to light, they placed an order, and we've placed that order. They should be here either tomorrow or first thing Monday.
So for the kids that are in person, can the students see the teacher? Do you know what I'm saying? Because
yes, I know exactly what you're saying. The solid divider was later altered to be clear, even though we did that in-house. Those custodians there at Robert Semple are amazing. They went and cut out each divider that was already set up, each custom divider, and recustomized it so that a clear piece of plastic was in between the student and the teacher. And the teacher, they situated each desk where they felt, again, teachers weren't in the classrooms when they did this, where they felt that the teacher would have the best angle at keeping an eye on their students. So and they did this throughout the school.
There's no center piece. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. So depending on where the tables were set up, how they were set up, it's possible that a teacher from a teacher's desk, there could be a divider that wouldn't obstruct that teacher's view of the students. And so those were left in place.
Do you understand why I think this is an equity issue?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But I just wanted to be clear that, we tried to give them first what we had and what was available.
Okay.
So it wasn't like Robert Semple got pushed to the bottom when they were actually brought to the top of receiving this kind of PPE, I guess we can call it. They were at the forefront, honestly, and I thought the custodians did an amazing job in, again, evolving with each kind of situation that came up. And as time went by, we started to get a better understanding of what we were dealing with.
I'd like to add just a couple of points. One is a lot of that happened way back in the spring when we started trying to get things, and there was nothing to be found. You could not order any clear anything. It was just like the toilet paper in the grocery store, gone. And the second thing is, in our MOU, dividers were really not mentioned for all all desks. It was the teacher's desk could request one, and then dividers when we couldn't keep that 6 foot difference, and they've gone above and beyond and offered to anybody that wants them. And so that was another evolution that has gone above and beyond.
You know, this is not about anybody. I'm not, as I preface my statement, it's not about going above and beyond. It's looking through an equity lens. So we're all elementary schools offered the same thing at the same time.
Yes. Oh, in the beginning, no. When Robert Semple received those materials, that was all we could scrounge. And we went to several different hardware stores, and we reached out to local manufacturers trying to find, and our own vendors to try to find plexiglass. It just wasn't available. The only thing we could find were these was this material. And so that's why we went with it. And then, was like our pilot program. Can we make this happen?
Well, I understand. I really do understand. So thank you.
And
thank you for
clarifying. No problem. Absolutely.
I think that I understand where Cece's coming from, but I think you've probably answered her question. I'm hoping she understands kind of what happened. And Mr. Maselli, did you have any questions before I close this and go to the next item? Nothing? Okay. So thank you very much for sharing that information. And thank you, Cece, for your comment. I appreciate it. We're going to move on to item 12.3, which are student assessment updates. And we're going to welcome back Mrs. Rice to go over this with us. She has a presentation.
All right, take two.
Take two. It's all yours.
Screen share, please work. All right, let me just get you set up for a moment. All right, so my next presentation is to update you on our state testing requirements, as well as discuss our recommended plan for this year. So you're probably aware that California pursued a waiver in regard to state testing, CASP, also known as SBAC, and they actually decided to go forward with that waiver in March. Going forward with that waiver, their focus was, and I'm going to read this because I think it's important, that assessments, a focus for assessments to provide information to parents, educators, and the public about student performance and to help target resources and support. The waiver's intent was to give LEAs, so us, options based on their students' situation and county, state. And then the U.S. Department of Education also encouraged school districts to consider other steps within our purview to further reduce the stakes of assessment this year, such as excluding their use from students' final grades, grade promotion decisions, educator evaluations, and local school ratings. So mind you, California is going for their waiver in March. It was approved April 6th, so right during spring break. And the waiver that was approved did not remove CASP for our state testing. It actually just allowed for some flexibility and also removed some of the stipulations for reporting. So some of those things that were moved was the requirement to have the progress measured on the California dashboard that we always present. Also, they still want you to encourage having a 95% or above participation rate, but they've removed the penalty for this year. That would be reported in the academic indicator. They also are removing the requirement to identify schools to get support or be in comprehensive support and improvement. They are requiring schools that are currently identified for support to continue receiving that support. And they're also allowing schools to exit based on their graduation rate. And then they are going to resume, according to now, next year, identifying schools. And that would be based on next year's data, not on this year's data. Some things that we'll have to report on is chronic absenteeism, student and teacher access to technology, and then we will also need to report on our academic measure for our SARC and also to our parents and guardians. What this waiver is allowing us to do is to have some more choice. So they call it the most viable option during COVID. And what the requirements need to follow is, of course, alignment to the California state standards. It needs to be available to assess the grades that we did through state testing in the past, which was 3rd through 8th and 11th. And it needs to be uniformly administered. So you can't have one second grade class doing this assessment, another second grade or another 11th grade class doing this assessment. It has to be uniform across the board. And we have to be able to then have data to report publicly. And the data that we have to report publicly is the student performance, and we do report publicly the number and percentage of students tested and not tested, but again, we are not held accountable for not reaching 95%. So BUSD's plan, which we feel is our most viable option, and this was discussed at each site level, is to assess in May to allow for that reopening transition. It has to be complete by the end of school, which for us is the first week of June. Our plan, and actually our plan has changed since I submitted this presentation. We're planning to assess 2nd through 12th grade students, and we're going to use the NWEA MAP assessment for both ELA and math. And the reason why we're choosing this assessment is really because first it allows us to access the data almost immediately. We get it in 24 to 48 hours. So we'll have timely data to help support our planning for a summer program, to help support our planning for supporting our kids for next year, whereas CAST is often lag data that we don't get until after the start of the year. We also chose NWEA MAP because it takes approximately 2 days or 2 class periods to administer versus the way the CAST is broken down for supporting in-person and virtual students can take up to 2 weeks for administration, and we just don't have that much time left. It does provide great reports for parents and guardians that can give some targeted suggestions at the elementary level. Some of the suggestions are connected to programs we have, such as Lexia. Your child is struggling here. There's some activities they can work on in Lexia, so that will help us support our students that are struggling over the summer, as well as some of the assessments through CAST, such as the CAA, which is for our students, identified students with disabilities, is only offered in person and not virtually. So we couldn't assess all of our students with this option. That's another reason why we chose NWEA MAP. NWEA MAP is a test that is adaptable. So the student initially starts with a question that is in their grade band. And depending on how they answer, if they're getting questions right, the rigor slowly amps up. If they miss some questions, it scaffolds down. So it is accessible for all learners. In addition to NWEA MAP, we're also though going to offer CAST to our 11th grade students, as that's the last time they take CAST in high school. This would be in addition to taking MAP and optional, and the high school is working now on getting information out to students to see if they would like to participate. And then to also progress monitor our kindergarten and first grade, we are going to use their ESGI system that all kindergarten and first grade teachers use. We are going to give a universal math assessment and collect reading levels for these grades. And then the requirement has not been changed or altered at all for our English language learners. The expectation is that we still finish giving the LPAC summative assessment. So we're really diligently working now to get all of our English learners assessed. And then if time permits, around giving NWEA MAP, LPAC, AP assessments, and all the other tests going on, then we will look to assess our 8th and 12th grade students on CAST. So CAST is still on the table, but they talked about kind of this hierarchy of assessment that we need to test all students in math and reading. And then CAST is typically given to your 5th grade, your 8th graders, and once in high school, and we do it in 11th grade. So that is why we were focusing on 8th and 12th. And then I also attached for you all the information that I've been receiving from CDE, U.S. Department of Education, and our SCO counterparts on all of the different decisions that have come up. So that's where we are with testing. Testing will happen this year. We're going to try to test as many students as we can, and really still leave the focus on getting that information, but allowing for as many teaching days as we can. And that's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Rice. Yes, any questions?
I think I have a general question, and it's kind of just tied into your last presentation in this, and just thinking about the list of services and supports that we've been providing students. And I just want to make sure, have students been receiving, would you say, less support academically, or has it been about the same, or has it increased?
Well, as far as after school support, we're offering them the math and ELA support, and that's more than we were offering in the past. We also have the after school, like I shared with Lego Brick Space, and that's not just, an after school program, but it's a tutoring support opportunity as well. And then with, definitely during COVID, yes, things were, our time has shrunk, but as far as teachers availability, I have a high school student, so I can speak from my experience as well. My daughter in math, her teacher, they had their lessons and they were able to work, but he was always available for office hours and extra support, even building that in on Fridays. The other opportunities I've seen is allowing for late work. It's not just a one and done, we want you to get this concept. So allowing that flexibility, and a lot of teachers are doing the, retest, like you may have gotten this grade now, but the goal is to get here for mastery. So, I'll speak again, it's just right in the fresh in my mind, Mr. Guinan in math, you're in charge of your learning. I'm here to support you along the way. So yes, this is your grade now, but I'm here. So let's work together, and I'm going to give you, you have another shot. So that's a shift, definitely in the positive that I've seen. I don't know if that answered your question, but there's different things, but there's been a lot of silver linings as well, as far as flexibility and grace and giving kids more opportunities.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Maselli, Mrs. Ferrucci, Mrs. Grubbs? We're all good? Okay, again, Stephanie, thank you again for your hard work and putting this together and keeping us up to date with all the new information. We appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Wish us luck.
Yes, good luck.
A positive piece as well is our students have been working really hard, right? They're ever so resilient, and this has been a lot for everybody, but the students really are going strong. Our teachers have worked so hard. So, I'm excited to see this amazing rigor that still happened, and let's see, what information we get from that. So thank you for letting me share.
Of course. Thank you so much. Okay, then we're going to move on to item 12.4, return to in-person instruction update. And I would like to invite Dr. Beatson to share her information that she's put together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to share a little bit about our reopening from 3rd through 12th grade, since that has happened since the last time we met. And I have here with me Ms. Kleinschmidt from Benicia High School and Ms. Lewis from Liberty High School. And Ms. Dalsky was here, but she had to step off to go get her student from some sporting thing that she was doing. So she apologizes for having to step off before we got to this agenda item. So what I have for you tonight is really, my part will be minimal, and then I want to turn it over so you can hear from the folks who have been at the school sites who can share what has been happening and what's going well and anything that they've learned along the way. So we want to just remind everyone that before April break, we brought back our TK to 2s, and you heard from our elementary school principals. And then since April break, our 3rd through 5th, our middle school, and our 2 high schools have come back online. And just a reminder, these percentages are still about right. I know there's been a little bit of movement at Benicia High School and at Liberty High School around more students deciding to come in and more students deciding to stay home. So it's been a continued flip-flop that way, but we have about 50% of our elementary students, 60% in some cases, and about 35 to 40% of our middle and high school students choosing to come back in person. And so here are some additional pictures and quotes from our 3rd through 5th graders. And in the bottom left corner, you can see the teacher has both her students in class doing a read aloud, also with the students at home on Zoom. So there is separate time for in-person and virtual learning, but the teachers are often bringing the kids together as well because they want to continue with that classroom community. So when they have the opportunity to do both, some teachers are choosing to do that. And a beautiful quote from an elementary school student. A student said when the teacher reminded them Friday was a virtual day, Miss so-and-so teacher, are you going to be lonely? So the kids were really happy to be back. Teachers are thrilled to be back. And what's happening in the upper right-hand corner is a social emotional learning lesson. And so the kids went out because we encourage people to learn outside as much as possible. You can see they're socially distanced and enjoying a SEL lesson. Here we have Benicia Middle School. Middle school, as we know, the most important thing for middle school students is being with friends because that is the age of peers are the most important. So I like being back and seeing my friends. That was really important. You have PE in the bottom left corner, playing ping pong, socially distanced. And then you can see in the upper right-hand corner, students continuing to learn both in person and online. And the school campus looks beautiful, by the way. So they have done an amazing job there. And then Liberty High School, it's only day 3 and I feel I'm already doing better. It's great being back with friends. I missed my teachers and being here at Liberty. And so we have outdoor, I believe it was an outdoor PE mindfulness class down in the bottom. And then the upper right-hand corner is the new wellness center that was set up differently before we had to be socially distanced, but now that we needed to be socially distanced, they had to rearrange the furniture a little bit to keep students further apart, but it's just a different setting. And they were coming in and learning together, and Miss Lewis will be able to tell you a little bit more about what was happening in that picture when we get to that part. And then finally, just some information from Benicia High School. This is a dream come true. I'm back from a Benicia High School student, and then staff as well. It's great to see students back on campus and in the classroom. Today has been a great day. It feels good to be back. And so you can see students really just rising to the occasion as they always do, and following the social distance rules and expectations. And in the upper left, and then in the right hand picture, students are working in stations, and that is in the medical careers with their new equipment that they have there. And so at this point, that's the end of what I have. Oh, and then just a huge shout out. Sorry, this is a huge shout out to every single department, staff, classified staff, teachers, administrators, because it has been an ongoing journey this year of figuring out the big details and then the teeny tiny details, and people have done an amazing job and been very resilient and flexible. And so what I'd like to do now is open it up to Ms. Lewis and Ms. Kleinschmidt if they have any other additional pieces that they would like to share.
I'll go ahead and jump in. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here and to be talking about reopening at the end of our second week. It's been great to see our students back on campus. We continue to adjust to this new way of doing school, and over the past several weeks have continued to communicate with parents probably more than ever before, answering questions, accommodating requests. We've had students change from virtual to in-person as they've seen our successful reopening, heard from friends. We've also had some students, some families choose to move from in-person to virtual, just based on what's best for each family. Our counselors, our teachers have done an amazing job at communicating with all of our families, helping our students, supporting our students. We've had a lot of students express being back for their social emotional needs and the benefits that they're feeling being back at school. I think the request we get most often is, can we come more? Can we be here all 4 days? And that's something we're actually working on and heading in that direction, I think fairly soon. So I'm really happy to report that. But we're at about 37% of our students back in person. And so divided between, we're there 2 days a week for our blue group and 2 days a week for our gold group. So 37% is then divided between those two groups. And looking at those numbers over the past 2 weeks, we continue to analyze that so that we support our students the best that we can, our teachers as well, and get as many students on campus for as much time as we possibly can. In addition, we're working with our special education teachers, our case managers, our students that need the most support, and getting some of those students back on campus for 4 days a week starting next week, so that we're providing the highest level of support possible. It has been great. Those quotes are, I actually was able to hear those quotes our first day back from some of our students. And I'll add to that by saying, today at lunch, we had students up on the stadium, just happy to be together again, just enjoying, seeing friends, a lot of them making new friends because maybe their whole friend group isn't there. And so it's a unique opportunity to meet other kids in their classes. Our largest group is our freshmen. We have just a little over half of our freshmen that have returned. And so it's a great opportunity for them to be on campus and have that experience, make those relationships. And we look forward to the next several weeks and continuing with in-person learning.
I'll jump in. I want to echo the sentiments of Ms. Kleinschmidt as what's happening at Liberty, the joy that we're receiving as adults to see the kids being happy to see each other fills our buckets every day. We're over 50% of our student population is in person. I got 4 more requests this week because they want to come back. I think word of mouth is that kids are enjoying each other and enjoying the experiences that we've created on campus. I want to give a big shout out to Arts Benicia, who's come on board to help do some trauma-informed care through art as we unpack what we've gone through in the last year. Not only as students, but my teachers are getting into the art lessons to express themselves, express their feelings of what we've gone through. Our wellness center, and kids are finding a safe space to talk about and connect with each other. So while there is definitely a focus on academics, we really do have this strong pivot and strong focus also of looking on how the overall well-being of our students. And selfishly, I giggle every day, so I know my teachers are doing well because they see the joy in their kids. So overall, Liberty's doing great. We're really excited to be back. And like Ms. Kleinschmidt says, it's just moving forward and just in communicating with our parents that there is joy being in the classroom.
Thank you, and thank you for both for being here late this evening. Do you have any questions? Ms. Brucci?
Yeah, I actually have one that came up with us earlier, and one of the things that we were concerned about, and maybe Dr. Beetson, you can address it, was the idea of the students zooming in the classrooms instead of having the live teacher interaction. Can you speak to that at all, or is there any possibility that you could get us some information so that we know there's actually live instruction going on in the classroom?
I can speak to that, and I don't know if Ms. Kleinschmidt has anything that she wants to add as well, and then I can definitely follow up. So because at Benicia High School, the periods are the same. So the students are there all day. They're if they're not in person, they're either live streaming in to the classroom, or the teachers find a different way to present and teach the material ahead of time, or posting a video or what have you on the days when the students aren't in school. And so right now the numbers in some classes are small, and there's a lot of students at home, and it is tricky. I mean, I think that's the most honest answer, is to try to engage students who are at home learning and the students in class, and keeping the activities equitable, so that you don't do something completely different with the kids who are in school versus the kids that are at home. And so sometimes it is the experience of being in the class is the experience, but the teacher may need to teach the same way through a video lesson or Zoom lesson. But the other piece that I do know is oftentimes some of the direct instruction happens that way, and then students might go into breakout groups to continue to work collaboratively, and that's the opportunity where the teacher can work with the students in the classroom and then pop through the breakout rooms. And so they're trying to balance two different things. At Benicia Middle School, the students, they've split their schedule is a little bit different. And so they will offer, say, first period and second period, the Zoom first thing in the morning. And then the kids in the afternoon are doing that same lesson in person. I don't know if I completely answered that, but it depends on what the class is and what the teaching that's happening and how the teacher is choosing to engage the students at home, if it is simultaneous or if it's in two different sessions.
Okay.
Did I catch it?
Yeah, no, you did capture it. I think we were trying to figure out if in fact that was the experience. So, and then the other question I have, and I know we've talked about this before, is now that we know that our students are going to be assessed coming up rather quickly, Benicia Middle School has cut their schedule. The students are only in class for an hour and a half, and that's 2 classes, so 45 minutes. So I'm still concerned that they're only getting an hour and a half every day.
Well, they're getting an hour and a half for 2 classes in person.
For 2 classes, correct. So each class has been cut back for 15 minutes.
Each class originally was 52 minutes. And so
no, their class was, well, I'm not going to argue with it, but it was longer than that.
Was it longer than
yeah. when they were doing just Zoom. So I'm concerned about the fact that they have been reduced to the shortest schedule of all 3 grade levels. And they're also going to be need to experiencing testing as well. So I think that's a concern for our middle school kids. And I don't know where instructional minutes or the expectation of reduced minutes, I've not been able to get a clear answer from that of what's expected of students during this time period.
When they're
I was just going to say, Dr. Beatson, maybe you can provide that over the next few days, come up with something that can explain it more so we can see it. Because that
maybe President Zeta, maybe she can put it in a board update. Maybe
that would be perfect.
An explanation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and she can maybe she can also talk a little bit about the process of that with those decisions were made. That always helps to remind ourselves how we got to where we got. I had one thing I wanted to say as we wrap this one up, maybe that I had an opportunity to talk to a number of teachers. I think it was at the elementary, and I said, upper grade kids, I said, when the kids came in, did they have a hard time, were they slow to start interacting with one another? Because I'd heard a little bit about that as I talked to a number of teachers, and they said, no, not really. And I was so happy to hear that they were pretty quick to start engaging with each other. And Ms. Lewis, I talked to your teachers too, and they said the kids were ready to talk. So I was worried about that, right? Because they've been home so long. But that little sample size that I did, that's happy news. So, well, thank you, team. Good job. Good job.
Well, I actually have a question too. I know that we had the 3 cases of COVID at the high school in the first 2 weeks. Have we been able to figure out, was that school related or sports related, or was it just they happened to catch it somewhere else outside of school? And then we had one at the middle school. It seems like the deal that hooks them all together is sports. Is there an issue with the sports, or it just happens that the kids? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ms. Kleinschmidt. Go ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Part of our we reopened coming off of spring break, and from the tracing that we've done and the timing of those cases, it reasons that came from spring break. And those 3 cases were not connected. Only one of those students was on campus, and that was the first day only. And when we notified any students, any teachers that were considered close contact, the other students were not on campus and were not connected to that. So we've been definitely concerned and definitely keeping a very close eye on that and working to communicate to the utmost so that everyone, it's one thing to be safe and it's another thing to feel safe. We're doing so much to make sure everyone is safe. We want them to feel that way also. And so we continue to really just stress the importance of social distancing, especially during lunch, if people are eating and their masks are off, properly wearing masks, not just during school, but outside of school. We recognize that people are socializing and there's sports and there's other activities. And we want everyone to take that responsibility to help keep each other safe at school and outside of school.
And where are the high school kids eating lunch? I was just curious about that because I know months ago we talked about it. And Sean said that they'd be eating like in the bleachers with little X's where they could sit socially distant. Are they doing a good job of staying socially distanced at lunch? Or?
They're doing a good job. We are definitely giving reminders often, but they're doing a good job. Mr. Thompson went above and beyond. He actually painted stencils underneath our picnic tables so that kids know exactly where to sit. He's done announcements a few times to remind students and to encourage that if students have friend groups of more than 3, that they eat up in the stadium where there's plenty of room to spread out because the picnic tables safely seat 3 with distancing. And so we are out and about more than ever. We get all our steps in every day. But the stadium has become a pretty neat place. It's growing in terms of the number of students that are going up there, and different groups are coming up, and everybody's kind of finding their spot, and that takes a little while, even in a normal year. And so they've spent the first 2 weeks doing that also, and it's been neat to observe and see that working. But they're doing a good job. We remind them as needed, but so far, no calls home and no kids sent home for that reason. So I'm glad to report that.
Great. That's fantastic. And I think you guys did a really good job dealing with that the COVID issues at the school in terms of communication. I wanted to commend you on that.
Thank you. Hey, thank you, Mr. Marcel. Ms. Kleinsman, isn't there 3 places where the kids could eat? Because I was praising food services because they've got, the upper stadium. Like it's like places. I'm so proud of them. So
3 places that they're serving food. Yes. So out of our cafeteria, out of what we call the lunch box that's in the quad. And then also they're serving up at the stadium from what's normally our canteen for games. And so there really isn't a wait because there are these 3 different places with free meals for our students, which is just wonderful. Students can just walk up and have their ID card scanned that they're wearing on their lanyard. So it makes it very easy, and they could not be more friendly. Our food services staff is just doing an amazing job. We walk up every day and they're waving at us, saying hi, reminding us what's for lunch so we can help sell it to the kids. And it's gone really well.
Awesome.
That's fantastic. Was there anything, Dr. Moss, Mrs. Grubbs, anything that you want to say? No? Thank you again. This was well received by, I think, all of us. We're glad to see things start going back to normal, and I certainly enjoyed the reports of our 2 high schools in our district. So, and I feel that we've been hearing the same things from our elementary and our middle school. We've seen a lot of the same things that are positive. So, without further ado, I am going to move on to number 13, our non-consent action items. And the first, there's only one, and it is consideration and approval of the 2022 to 2023 and the 2023 to the 2024 school year calendars. And with that, I am going to, who's going to be, Dr. Gill, if I could have you back. Thank you. Sorry, I got confused there for a second.
No problem. Good evening,
Thank you.
President, trustees, Dr. Young, and cabinet members and our community members and staff. So our tradition in our district is that we are always like to stay ahead of the game and have future year calendars drafted and outlined, not necessarily like back to school nights, those kind of things, but at least the first day of school, last day of school, breaks, so that our staff and parents and students, everybody can plan their years, time off and those type of things. I do want to apologize because of COVID. We are behind, so that's why bringing two of the calendars together. I do want to thank our committee. We have BTA members, CSA members, and management team members on the committee. They all worked very, very diligently to prepare these calendars. We spent hours working on these, and these have been looked at and approved by the committee. These also has been ratified by the BTA unit members, and bringing them forward to you for your approval, so that we can post them on our website and share those with the community and our staff.
Thank you, Dr. Gill. So right now, I want to I would like to see if there's a motion on the table to approve these consent calendars over the next few years out.
Good. I'll move for you, Sherry.
Thank you. I didn't want to have to say all that again.
It's okay.
Okay. First, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Maselli. And with that, we come to an end of our evening's meeting, and we thank all of those that have. Oh, darn. You know what? I was doing so good tonight. Darn it. I'm like, okay, may I get a roll call vote, please? Thanks. Yes.
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 Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Mrs. Martinez, for keeping me on track. So without further ado, please stay well and enjoy your families. And there's a reminder that the next regular board meeting is going to be on May 6th. So thank you for tuning in, and we will see you on the flip side. Thanks.
We'll see you on Saturday.
Well, yes, that too. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.